All right, let's head to the Money Desk. Devin Morgan joining us in studio once more. And Devin, you know, as we keep hearing about these challenges, load shedding, unemployment, youth unemployment in particular, so many issues in our economy that need urgent attention, perhaps inevitable that we're seeing a lot of young people looking to greener pastures and leaving the country. You've got some new information about this evening, haven't you?
Yeah, and admittedly, it's pull and push factors. Let's understand that. But I mean, we still have a depletion of skills in the country at a time when we need it desperately, and that will always be a topic worthwhile speaking about. So increasingly younger people are emigrating from South Africa, and business leaders are responding to that point in a new survey. They've raised concern. Research group from Payroll Services Group, Playroll, suggests that the country's skills crisis runs deeper than just industry shortages. Simonetta Giuricich is the Chief Operating Officer for Playroll. She joins me now. Simonetta, thanks indeed for your time. So you've surveyed dozens of business leaders, and of course we know that the exodus of skills has been a problem for some time. But what is peculiar about this particular survey in terms of the specific findings?
I think, Devin, and good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I think what we found very interesting, there's some things that aren't surprising. We know people are leaving. I think that won't surprise anyone. But the thing that really struck us was that most business leaders who cite employee relocation or immigration as one of the critical risk factors for their business suggested that to them that means it's the end of the road and there is no solution to actually solving for that problem, which is something we found quite interesting because we believe to have a very practical solution for South African businesses.
And it's interesting that traditionally one would have thought that the upper income brackets would be the only one emigrating. But data from SARS, for example, suggests that lower income earners are also ending their tax residency. Does this come out in the research?
100%. Look, I think the one thing that's quite challenging is that typically the statistics around this phenomenon are quite hard to come by. I don't think anywhere is reporting the official stats quite correctly. However, I do believe that the SARS stats are probably the most meritable in that, you know, we can trust that. But I think what's particularly interesting is that the top countries where our immigrants are going to, being the likes of the UK, for example, I've always thought it was because of ancestral reasons that people could get into the country. But based on the research, it's become abundantly clear that the majority of people that are leaving for the UK are getting in on skilled work visas. So that means our top skills are leaving. The next big country, Australia, we know the stringent point system that they have. We understand the very difficult qualification scenarios that they look at before allowing anyone in, and their biggest thing is age. And Australia, being the second country, the second highest country of South African immigrants, now suggests that it's our young people and our brilliant young people, as you know, highly qualified but young. And then the last country that we cited in the research is Portugal. And although that could also talk to some form of family reunification, the big thing in Portugal is the foreign sort of investment scheme, citizenship by investment. And that comes to individuals who are able to invest in the country at properties more than 550,000 euros. And that's the third highest country of immigrants leaving South Africa. Now that's a little bit different to what the question was that you asked, but that to me completely suggests that South Africa's C-suite is upping and leaving. But I think the final interesting destination, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The final interesting destination, which is not really a destination per se, is actually those that are not leaving, but somehow are still not here. And that is the young people, also with good skills, where our international competitors or international companies have tapped into the South African workforce. They've understood the skills and the talent that we have available to us. It's a good time zone. We speak English, good skill set. And they've decided to tap into the South African talent pool in order to actually hire internationally. So now all of a sudden, what was a talent pool that was physically shrinking is now also virtually shrinking. And that's the concept of virtual immigration.
And I see, to talk to your point, there's another angle on that angle, in fact, your research showing that 40% of 120,000 software developers in the country, for example, as you say, are working remotely for foreign companies. So there's undoubtedly a loss there, isn't there?
a massive loss. It's a massive loss. I mean, look, the critical factor here to make, is the fact that these types of skills are able to work remotely. But with that, 40% of our software developers, I mean, we all know the way the world is, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. The fact that 40% of our skilled software developers mean that our businesses, our South African businesses, are losing out on the best talent because they're being employed by international businesses. So the crisis is multifold, but I think there are some practical solutions to combat it. So it's not all doom and gloom.
All right, so let's talk about that, because obviously businesses have to look beyond simply just offering more pay to retain key talent. They've got to do something more. We've got to retain that. What's coming out in the survey?
So what's interesting is that, as I said, 70% or so of our respondents said that there was no solution. It was the end, and even how can you force someone if they're looking to leave and they're looking to live somewhere else? You can't force them to stay. However, there was a minority of the survey that actually were able to regain control of this immigration factor on the basis that they were able to find a solution that allowed them to still employ these people, even being in a different country, so legally employ them in a different country without the hassle of having to set up a legal entity, set up a bank account, run through all the legal and statutory compliance hoops that it would take to hire someone in a foreign country. And yet they've kept the skills here. So although the person is physically not here, that person is still actually building their business just from a different location. And that is the finding. And what's so interesting is businesses like Playroll that offer this concept of an employer of record solution. That's exactly what they do. We are effectively offering South African businesses an extremely viable and highly practical solution to maintain their talent that is they're leaving and losing. And we've looked at who the talent is. We've said it's young people, it's skilled people, it's senior people, it's across all spheres, it's across all industries. Obviously, the critical factor being remote work, but it is possible to keep them even if they leave. It is not the end of the road, and it's so important for South Africa and the business landscape.
Yeah, no doubt it is. That's an interesting angle. Well, thanks very much indeed. Simonetta Giuricich is the Chief Operating Officer for Playroll.